Hey fellas, before we get in the video, I just want to quickly say that I'm not advocating for or encouraging the doxing, targeting, harassment, or bullying of any individuals that be mentioned or featured in this video, or this is an opinion piece of my particular commentary on the subject matter, however controversial as it may be. So, without I quickly say it, let's go ahead and start the show. Hi. This isn't what it looks like, okay? This is purely for research purposes, alright? Welcome to FreeFurAll. You know, it's a pretty happening place, you know, for all things hip and furry. You want to join me in the ball pit? Water's fine. Please don't tell anybody on social media, okay? This can be our little secret, okay? No! Stop! It's not what it looks like! Please, don't cancel me on Twitter! I can't afford to! No! Hey, what's going on, everybody? Panda back in action. Talk about CL statement. Boy, how do we have something to talk about here today? Woo-wee! Honestly, this is just a visceral reaction to an event that took place at the end, like the tail end of July, okay? And it's honestly something I wasn't honestly truly expecting. I kind of forgot about it for a while, and then I saw screen caps and videos and various other forms of media hit Twitter, and I was just like, holy shit, did this actually happen? There's still a part of my brain that like wants to tell me that this is, you know, somehow communications that have been sent from Bizarro World, because like I thought it was just a meme, okay? Like FreeFurAll, like as a convention, I legitimately thought it was just a meme. As far as this video, it's really just a reaction on my part, because typically I like to cover drama and things like that, but nothing really happened at FreeFurAll. But just how sad and pathetic the convention was when it came out. This is not a convention that failed throughout the duration of its going on. This is a convention that like was dead on arrival, okay? Even DashCon saw a little bit more activity than this, but I guess when like the entire fandom took turns just egging on it and like dumping on it and freaking like lampooning it from the get-go, you know, that's not really a recipe for success right there. But on top of which, you had some of the most, I wouldn't say the worst of the worst, but you did not have anybody there that really struck me as famous or, you know, popular. See, I like JSonFX, like I hate to say. He is one person that I will not be able to cover in good faith and conscience. Part of the fact of this is because, like, he's part of the reason that my YouTube channel exists in the first place. You know, all those hours just spent, like, whiling my hours away playing Amorous over and over again and trying, like, to actually give it some voice acting. Because everybody else at the time when, like, Amorous was discovered and it was disseminated across the World Wide Web, nobody put any fucking effort in the voice acting. And I'm just like, okay, y'all motherfuckers are boring as hell. I'm gonna go ahead and give this a shot. And not to like say I was like great or anything like that, but at least I fucking tried, right? Like I gave each and every character a slightly different voice, and I tried to the best of my abilities to articulate, you know, sort of like the tone, like the message, the emotions that they would be conveying in that moment. But you didn't come here to hear me talk about that. So yeah. Let me just go ahead and reflect upon everything that I remember about FreeFurAll and what actually was presented to me in the form of various screen caps, videos, not all by like people that were bashing on the con, by the way. These were like screen caps, photos, various other things that were disseminated by the people attending the convention. And I'm just going to go ahead and strain my brain for a second. I seem to remember Ball Pit. And I seem to remember a light machine. And I seem to remember a dead-ass dance, like, fucking, like, it was a dead-ass dance. Like, dead dog parties are more happening than this shit. Oof. So I'm just gonna go ahead and say right now, Peace Wolf as an individual, I don't really have a beef with her, but she doesn't exactly have the most stellar reputation right now. She's seen as transphobic, she was hanging out with some very dastardly people, and if you'd like some insight as to who these dastardly people were, remember Polybun? I talked about him, like, just a couple months ago? kind of shot somebody and killed them and shot several other people at, candlelight vigil that turned into a protest. Remember that guy? Yeah, his best friend was supposed to go to FreeFurAll. Now, unfortunately, FreeFurAll's administration was trying to distance the convention itself from this guy, because this guy was no bueno, alright? Like, Canny Lupine, you might have heard of him. I remember him from, like, the Maryland Telegram chat groups, like, back in the day, and boy howdy, did he have some spicy-ass hot takes and comments. He apparently wants to start a genocide against trans people, which is particularly abhorrent, considering that the furry fandom's supposed to be all-inclusive and welcoming and celebrating your chosen identity, and that there'd be a mutual sense of respect between each of us, like, that's sort of like an unwritten agreement between us and the community, let alone being a decent human being. But Canny Lupine ain't all about that, alright? He's about being loud and proud and dumb as all fuck because, well, I guess he's a reflection of his peers down in West Virginia. And again, like, if you're West Virginian, I have met some great West Virginians, but maybe I'm a little bit biased after playing Fallout 3 so many times, going to Point Lookout, and, like, watching Wrong Turn so many times. Canny Lupine, he was arrested for making terroristic threats, and if you're curious as to what the nature of these terroristic threats were, he was threatening not only the governor of his own state, but also Kamala Harris, the vice president of the United States, and this is all in light of, like, abortion legislation that was being passed at the time, and it's just kind of like, okay, not the hill I was expecting you to die on, but good for you, pal. You stood up for what you believe in. The freedom of speech and, the desire to wish harm upon others. Now you get to pay the consequences by, I think, like, the news story that I read cited, like, $30,000. He's being held on bail for $30,000. Is it too much? Is it too little? I don't know. I will say one thing, though. Seeing his picture, like, in the news, the dude has not aged well, because I feel like I remember him, like, from Furthermore. If you don't know what Furthermore is more of a DC convention for furries. You see a crossover from Maryland Furs as well as Nova Furs, and if you're not sure what a Nova Fur is, it's anybody that resides within the area of Northern Virginia. So you see from people from, like, the DC area, you see people from Northern Virginia. But, yeah, Canny Lupine didn't exactly earn many, admirers over the years. But he was very chummy with Polybun, because both of them were just exhibit hate, like nothing but hatred and vile. And they had this wicked hard-on for, like, the worst fucking hot takes you can imagine. I'm all for people having, like, honest to God, like, political beliefs and opinions, but when your political beliefs and opinions revolve around hurting others just because they exist in a way that's different from what you would prefer, you're a special kind of something. You're a special kind of something shitty. So I don't think he's going to get out of jail anytime soon. He's probably going to be in the same category as Techie Fox, or I should say, pardon me, Tech Coyote. Techie Fox is a friend of mine, pardon me. Techie Fox, if you're watching right now, I do apologize sincerely from the bottom of my balls, but yeah, like, seriously, though, so Canny Lupine, he was basically saying a lot of terrible things in, like, a Telegram chat group, and this Telegram chat group was not necessarily, like, sanctioned by FreeFurAll, and, like, it just seemed like it was a repository for the deplorables that Hillary Clinton was mentioning back when she was running for president. And, the things that they would say, this is really something that a convention that has never taken place before is struggling to get off the ground, getting lampooned by the entire furry fandom, who are just basically dogpiling the idea behind it. Not that I can really blame the furry fandom for that, but, like, still, you gotta, like, wonder, was there any synapse in his brain that told him anything of self-awareness? Maybe think before you say something. But, the common consensus between me and various other people is that Canny Lupine's too far gone. And what's confusing is, like, his head's gotten round. Like, I'm sorry to, like, make fun of the dude for how he looks, but, like, if you look at his picture, he reminds me of those Airhead commercials back in the 90s. Like, Airheads, the candy, and, like, the common trope would be that someone would take a bite out of it and their head would, like, get all round. I think he's been living off of nothing but airheads up to this point. Like, his face, like, can't tell if his head got bigger or if his face got smaller. It's one of the two. It's a mystery. Okay, sorry, we're getting off track. Alright, so Kenny Lupine, unfortunately, or fortunately, was unable to attend FreeFurAll. Okay, he wasn't exactly doing the convention any favors, but, you know, all of this backlash from the furry fandom in light of the idea that all of the most controversial figures that, like, would congregate in one area, I will say it's kind of shitting on the furry fandom's part, because if these people really want a convention, let them have it, right? Like, let them go ahead and be shitheads somewhere else. At least they're not showing up at Anthrocon or MFF or BLFC. See, nobody thinks about that. Like, and if they want to spend money, like, setting this stuff up, more power to them, right? Well, I can't say that in good faith and conscience, but I can at least get behind the idea that there should be maybe a convention, because, like, historically, people have said that the Furry Raiders at Rocky Mountain FurCon. Apparently, Rocky Mountain FurCon did not like the Furry Raiders. Like, it's like supposedly a growing denomination of staff members of Rocky Mountain FurCon, as unpopular and as abhorrent as that convention was, they actually didn't really particularly like the Furry Raiders, you know? And when you got a troublemaker like Foxler Nightfire, like, you know, at the head of the curb, I can't really blame him, you know? So anyway, saying all of that, it's like the entire basket of deplorables decided to go to Tulsa, Oklahoma. But Tulsa, Oklahoma actually, like, turned them down. And I'm trying to remember. I think it was the Marriott. I think it was Marriott Southern Hills. So Marriott Southern Hills, it's like, you know, it's like a convention center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now, people were pointing out that the anticipated date, you know, July 26, 2022, was eerily close to, like, the anniversary of the Tulsa Massacre that occurred in Tulsa, Oklahoma. If you're not familiar with the Tulsa Massacre, it's basically where I believe a shoeshine boy got accused of assaulting, like, a white girl. Like, you know, they were roughly the same age. I think one was 16, one was 17, but that sparked, like, this massive shitstorm of drama. This was back in the 1920s. If I remember correctly. But it basically caused, like, a lynch mob to form, and I'm not going to get into the details of all that. Just know that a lot of angry people that were white all rose up as one, as if they were a hive mind, and they basically attacked the African American community and burnt it to the ground. So, needless to say, in today's day and age, we're a little bit more enlightened, and that we should really be treating other people, regardless of race, creed, or gender, a little bit better. It's probably a sore sticking point, especially if you're aware of your history. Boy, you know. But yeah, not only that, like, there were just various other things that were just weird in the lead up to the convention. Like, for instance, they had a chosen charity in Safari's sanctuary, which historically has been kind of the subject of scrutiny by, like, government officials, because there were alleged incidents throughout their duration of, like, operation where they abused animals, and they had their license revoked at least once or twice because, you know, they weren't really operating within the purviews of laws regarding, like, animal cruelty and such. And, like, a liger had mauled somebody. I think they were trying to take a picture, and for whatever reason, the handler's like, liger, probably docile, go on in, take your picture, bud. And the liger wasn't having it, and basically mauled the dude. He died. He's like Colonel Sanders from KFC. He did. He's not coming back. So I'm surprised that in light of everything like that happening with them, like, you know, they're still in operation, which is crazy. And they're also the chosen, like, you know, charity of FreeFurAll. So that right there is kind of a head scratcher to me, but I digress. Also, like, they came out with this promotional video where there was, like, a lion roaring, and, like, as far as, like, the theme, it plays into the theme of the convention. The theme's, like, returning back to the roots of America, because it had sort of, like, the typical red and blue motif. Like, it kind of evoked imagery in my mind of, like, the Obama posters where it's, like, hope back when he was running, but a lot of people said less flattering things. They're basically comparing the actual logo to, like, a police badge, and that the lion motif looks eerily similar to, like, Donald Trump's lion logo, which, again, maybe it's just a big coincidence and we all are digging too deep into all this. That's fine. The controversies really didn't start to kick up until, like, 2 Griffin was announced as the guest of honor. Now, if you remember 2 Griffin was supposed to be, like, doing comedy shows up in Anthrocon. And then he got yanked, like... I think that was a bullshit move, like, on Anthrocon's part, in all fairness. I know that there was a lot of backlash against him. I don't find him particularly funny. I think he looks funnier than he acts, but that's just me. But, like, at least, if he had, like, a panel that was scheduled, he should have at least been able to do the panel. And then Anthrocon could have told him, all right, you performed your last show. Congratulations. You are not allowed to have a panel next year. And if you're wondering why people are angry at 2 Griffin, it's for a variety of little reasons. He's kind of like a throwback to an earlier time in the furry fandom where edgier jokes were in vogue. And people could sort of get away with things a little bit easier. Like, kind of like back in the day, you could say things without 50 different people jumping down your throat. But at the same time, he sort of, like, defended rape, and statutory rape, not the forcible rape, I don't think, but still, it's just like, really, dude? In, like, the heightened climate that we live in right now, people aren't exactly happy to know that, like, older people are dating younger people, okay? That's kind of a hot-button issue. Everybody, people already see the furry fandom as nothing but a hive of, like, fucking scum and villainy with, like, pedophiles and zoophiles running about. And we already covered a couple of those on my channel already, so we don't need none of that, more of that. But, that 2 Griffin, he is, like, all in the name of comedy and freedom of speech. But, yeah, like, as far as, like, at the head of all this, I mentioned Peace Wolf before. I honestly don't know a whole lot about her because she seems like she's fine. But again, one sort of litmus test to determine, like, someone's mode of character. This isn't always the case because there are glaring exceptions, but generally speaking, you kind of look at the people that they keep in their present company. Like, the company that you keep is sort of indicative as to who you are as a person. Again, not always, but at least 75% of the time, anecdotally speaking, I would say that it's a good litmus test to sort of be a judge of character. Who do you associate with? What kind of people do you tolerate? And what kind of people do you absolutely not associate with? And she was hanging out with people like Canny Lupine, and I think Polybun was even in the mix, like, up until he got arrested for shooting up the place out like in Portland, Oregon. But that's neither here nor there, right? Guilt by association notwithstanding. So as far as, like, I was saying, like, the actual, like, theme of the convention was supposed to be returning to the roots of the furry fandom, even though they were kind of playing the whole, like, America first sort of vibe, because it was sort of like returning back to America. It was a very American-themed convention, which would be otherwise fine on its own, but, when you mix furries with that, and then you mix, like, hey, we just want to return to our roots of the furry fandom where we didn't have to worry about things like politics and, social justice and all this other bullshit and being at each other's throats all day, to then sort of making it about freedom of speech and being uncancelable and, like, just, being able to have this event for yourselves. The cracks kind of begin to show, and your true intentions sort of speak louder than any, like, sort of idea that you had behind this. But if you're wondering why I'm putting so much emphasis on the lead up to all of this seems like a powder keg, like, ready to explode, right? Nah. The convention, I struggled, like, between every picture, every form of media, whether it was, like, a video clip shared on Twitter or, like, photos, I struggle to find more than maybe 50 people in a room at a given time. And, like, as far as, like, the main events, it seemed like a snooze fest, like, the whole way through. Everything seemed fucking boring. If I was there, like, hypothetically speaking, I probably would have been sloshed the whole time. If they would allow that, because apparently kink gear and, like, sexual, spicy, like, attire would not be allowed, but it was sort of speculated that, Nazi uniforms and things like that would be A-okay. Thankfully, we didn't see anything like that, but we saw some things that were just as bad. As far as the activities goes, Like, Safari Sanctuary, they were providing the entertainment. And I say entertainment very loosely, because if you think that painting tortoises' shells, like, you know, as an activity, yeah, it could be interesting. I don't think I'd really want to use, like, a tortoise's shell as a canvas, personally. Like, you know, being an artist myself. But, hey, as long as it's non-toxic paint, right? Like, what does it harm the turtle? Some of those turtles looked a little bit weird. It looked like Mario had, like, you know, in the quest to get another life potion, like, or life mushroom, he just kept jumping on the same fucking turtle, and eventually the turtle just started, like, it could not handle the weight of that fat Italian plumber on its back, so its shell started to go droopy, and apparently, yeah, people were just speculating that that turtle was abused, but I'd like to think that maybe it was rescued, potentially speaking, because Safari's Sanctuary, that's the charitable aspect of it. They're supposed to be rescuing animals, so maybe it was rescued from the wild after, I don't know, suffering some sort of an accident of some sort where, like, it got hit. Maybe a fat Italian plumber did kick it, you know? Like, I don't judge, but some people like to kick armadillos, some people like to smash turtles. Nah, I kid. I'm just taking the piss, but seriously, it's just like, the more I saw, the more I was just like, this is looking simultaneously hilarious and sad. Like, hilariously sad. Like, I felt bad for the con attendees themselves. Like, what is it? If these people are conservatives, I don't really know the true political denominations of all these people that attended. Apart from what they've said online, and some of the people that you're going to see in some of these screenshots and things like that, they certainly had some spicy comments to share with the rest of us, but, you know, you gotta wonder sometimes. Do they not know what fun is? Like, would they not know fun if it came up and punched them right in the face? Because everything I saw just reeked to me of fucking boredom. It's like, hey, we don't necessarily all vibe together, but we're gonna pack ourselves in here, this big-ass convention center. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you all. So, in the lead up to, like, the actual happening of FreeFurAll. See, FreeFurAll, they announced, like, it actually being an event that was going to take place without actually securing the venue that was going to host them. Isn't that neat? That's like me, like, saying, hey, I'm going to be at Midwest Fur Fest without actually securing a room and being at the mercy of, like, whatever sort of, like, spillover hotels might be in the, like, radius of the convention center. Because I'll just go ahead and say, if you've ever been to MFF, there ain't a whole lot of options if you can't make it into those main hotels. So, you know, you're shit out of luck if you can't room with somebody or find a hotel room for yourself. And those suites are pretty pricey, you know? That's like prime real estate right there. If you want to, like, throw room parties and shit like that. I'm still thinking if I want to go to MFF myself, but yeah, you know, typically speaking, when you want to set up a new convention, new furry convention from the ground up, you need to secure that fucking venue and make sure that you have a good working relationship with them and you keep it professional. If you're wondering why, like, Tulsa, like the Marriott at Southern Hills, like, backed out, it was because they were starting to take notice of the simple fact that various people were, like, you know, slinging threats, like, towards anybody, like, everybody that was running FreeFurAll, which is the AWOO Association. What does the acronym stand for? I think it's Anthro West Open Organization, which just seems like a mishmash of words they put together just so they could have AWOO. And people were making the joke that they were trying to, like, copyright AWOO as, like, a word, which is really just a dumb, like, furry meme that should be free for the whole fandom to use. But you know what? AWOO, if you really want it that bad, go ahead and try to sue the rest of the furry fandom. See what happens. I'm sure it's going to work out great for you in the end. But no, it's just, like, crazy. So everybody looks kind of like they're just existing, okay? Nobody is having a particularly good time. Even the people standing in line, they're just gonna have, like, slack jaws and, like, slack shoulders. Like, they're just sort of resigned to their fate. And I get it. Maybe it's kind of hot out there, like, in, like, Oklahoma, you know? If you're wondering where they moved to, this all was taking place at the Glenpool Conference Center. And that's in Glenpool, Oklahoma, inexplicably. But the whole place, it seemed bigger. They had, like, more space than they could possibly pack anybody into. And I'm curious as to like what the amount of actual attendees were. It couldn't have been more than 100. Okay, like local conventions are bigger than that. Okay, I have been to some small ass conventions and they had more people than what Free for All could muster. And it's like, why? And like the people standing in line didn't look particularly happy to be there. I don't know, maybe I can't really speak for them, but at least they posed for the pictures. We got to see some fine people like step up to the plate. We saw dude that reached out to me once on Telegram, and I remember him as being a prominent member of the Furry Raiders. I forget his name, but he just looked like a femboy like candy corn dog. Like literally, look at his picture. That is a femboy candy corn dog, okay? Original character, do not steal, belongs to him. You better respect his copyright. Nah. But we also got Magnus. If you don't know who Magnus is kind of he's a decent fursuit maker. The problem is that the fursuits he makes are made out of spite to piss people off. Like the Confederate fursuit, yeah, that was made specifically to piss people off. People like you. Or me. And those of you that might remember me, like back when I was doing my cosplay with like the Vault gear, like from Fallout, I had like the biggest smile on my face because I see this angry motherfucker. Apparently it was Tech Coyote, like in the fursuit at the time, but I just see this angry dude stomping up to me with a Trump sign, and I just burst out laughing. It was the funniest thing I've seen all day. And I was showing people at the bar that night, like, and the bartender that was just serving me, she was just like, "Ooh, he angry." It's just like. But yeah, not exactly somebody you want to associate with. I'm trying to remember, Lemon Dog was like a firefighter who had passed away, I believe. I say I believe because I don't remember if he was a firefighter or if he was like an EMT. But he had passed away. And the furry fandom kind of loved Lemon Dog because, they were out saving lives, and they were also bringing like a heart and a smile for the rest of the furry fandom. And what Magnus did is they made like a half-assed copy of it and was acting like, Lemon Dog still lives! Yay! It's a miracle! The furry fandom was not amused. In fact, people were pissed. But that's what happens when you besmirch the name of like somebody that's, one of the cherished ones in the fandom. Well, you know what they say, only the good die young, right? So then you had like, and I've been saving this. I've been like, holding it in this whole time. Do you see my face right now? Do you see the anticipation built on this stoic look on my face? You won't imagine. It's almost as if the furry fandom's prodigal son had returned. Except he came back to lead the furry parade, which was truly the most exciting moment of this whole convention. Okay? No, like fucking Diesel Raccoon. He was here to inflate the fucking convention big and round. Clearly he didn't really accomplish that because only 50, I'm going to be generous and say 75 people. But the actual Fursuit parade, I think it only had 30 something people, maybe a little bit more. But I didn't really see a whole lot of fursuiters, And again, I'm trying to be generous because this is a new convention, okay? You can't really expect everybody to just drop what they're doing, pick up, go to this brand new convention that they've never been to before. Nobody knows if it's going to be a success or a failure, but still, the fursuiters that I did see, well, Diesel Raccoon was leading the pack. And Diesel Raccoon, he's somebody I covered in a prior video as well, and he's sort of become the butt of the fandom's joke. Everybody knows who Diesel Raccoon is. He tries to be taken seriously, but he got banned from Texas Furry Fiesta. And what's even crazier is that up to this point, he had nothing but glowing praise and admiration for the function of FreeFurAll. That all the attendees were un-cancelable because they were at a convention space that was not going to be subject to the same, social stigmas of other conventions like Antricon, Midwest Fur Fest, BLFC. And then he had the audacity to complain, "This fandom isn't respecting my Second Amendment rights. What about my right to carry a firearm wherever I go?" So I'll go ahead and tell you all, I'm actually like a big Second Amendment like advocate. However, just because I might be a Second Amendment advocate, I don't like feel comfortable with the idea of taking guns to like furry conventions, let alone movie theaters or places where alcohol is served. That's just kind of asking for trouble. I understand that some people feel like, you should be able to carry a gun anywhere, but if you really feel the need to do that, I don't know. I have some questions about your mental sanity because, like, some people, I can understand being paranoid, or maybe like somebody made death threats against you, but if you just want to have it just to have it and have the capability of shooting somebody, that seems like you just want to shoot somebody at that point. But that's just me. Different strokes for different folks, I guess. But yeah, it was just funny to me that he was complaining about that. Needless to say, the memes were absolutely glorious because people were comparing this convention, FreeFurAll, to DashCon or Rainforest 2.0. But the fact of the matter is, nothing of note really happened. It was just a bunch of people that were controversial throughout the furry fandom hanging out in one spot, and a lot of no-names as well, like various people. I will say, you could sort of identify who a furry raider was based on if they were wearing an armband, whether the armband was red, black, rainbow-colored, it didn't matter. If you saw the white spot in the paw print, that's a clear sign that that's a furry raider. And the furry raiders themselves, I see them as a pack of memesters, edgelords, and various other people that would fit right on in 4chan if they weren't furries. So, but yeah, some other people that I recognize. Like I said before, JSON Effects. I actually had the opportunity to meet the dude here in VR chat, and he seemed like a pretty chill dude. He and his girlfriend Kabir. Yes, I'm aware of the litany of allegations levied against him. I'm aware of his online activities and various things that he's done. But, I don't know. Appreciate the art, cast out the artist, like one of the two. What I'm saying is that I am biased, alright? And that's my admission to you all. Yes, I cannot, really defend in good faith and conscience the things that he's done. No, I cannot defend the things that he said on social media, but it's sort of weird that he would show up, of all people, like JSON Effects, the same guy that quit the furry fandom because of, all the backlash, everything that's happened up to that point, all of the hateocracy, all of the controversies, and, saying the N-word, and defending the use of saying said N-word. Yeah, the haha funny gamer word that people aren't supposed to say, but they do anyway because they want to get a reaction out of people. Not the best way to sort of ingratiate yourself to the furry fandom, right? But at least he produces good porn, so plenty of people ignore that fact about him and appreciate the pornography. Like him being the animator, he did Bareback Streets, he did various other things. I'm a JSON Effects fanboy insofar as I really appreciate Amorous and everything it brought me as far as my experiences and the growth of the channel. But I can, in good faith and conscience, defend, JSON Effects' actions. Kabir, she seems relegated to, just being the artist, the quiet artist type. And I didn't really see anything concerning about her. I will say, down the line, other people that I could just recognize in the crowd, Foxler Nightfire, or Foxler if you prefer, just Foxler. What does the name Foxler evoke in your mind? And try to gear it towards Nazis. I'm thinking really hard now. Big brain time. Oh yeah, that's right, Adolf Hitler. So Foxler, Hitler, do you see some sort of correlation there? And the fact that he wears a red armband on his arm, and, I don't recall him ever giving the Nazi salute, but I do remember that he tried to join the KKK. No joke. And I've seen the guy. He's kind of Asian, like me. I believe Filipino, but I don't know for absolute sure. But, it was crazy to me. He just seems like an agent of chaos. I don't know what his true political motivations or beliefs are. He just seems like he wants to do things for the goofs and gaffs of it, but he doesn't know when to quit, so he'll just take it way too far. The one thing that sort of marked him as less of an agent of chaos and more of an absolute monster was when he, was convicted of grooming a minor and possibly having sex with a minor. I don't remember the details, and I try not to these days because, yeah, you know, he wasn't exactly striking me as an upstanding member of the furry fandom, but what do I know, right? I'm just a YouTuber. So, but no, like, I can show you the Fursuit, like, you know, picture, like the group picture, kind of like what they do for, like, Anthrocon and things like that. Yeah, really fucking impressive, right? You know, just fucking put some sort of caption on that. I can think of one caption, okay? Here I go. Yeah, and they all got the Medal of Honor for being terrible people, I guess, and that's pretty much the whole thing. That's all, folks. So, I didn't even get to 2 Griffin. 2 Griffin, he was the guest of honor. He was supposed to be the one, the only, 2 Griffin, going to be performing. And he shows up, and, like, people were pointing out that the dude looks like fucking Robotnik, and I have to say, it's spot on. It's almost as if Robotnik was randomly drafted into the military, and they're just like, okay, can you put this patriotic shirt on and try to do something to motivate the troops right before we send them out to war? And that's the best they could do. So Dr. Robotnik is going to motivate the United States military to go to war. With what country? I don't know. Hopefully not Russia or China, but that's looking pretty close. No, he just didn't really seem all that prepared for all this. He just seemed like he was, you know, gonna, like, sit back, coast, like, rest on his laurels, be that guy, the cool guy in the room, maybe the old furry, gray muzzle. He doesn't have the gray muzzle yet. Like, his facial hair is still kind of red, but still, you know, age has not been kind to Dr. Robotnik. I'd say, you know what? For the next Sonic movie, let's cast 2 Griffin as fucking Dr. Robotnik, alright? Like, eat your heart out, Jim Carrey. I think 2 Griffin got you beat by a mile, alright? We just gotta give him some more, like, you know, a steady diet of hamburgers and pizzas, and he'll be good to go, alright? Try to build that, like, you know, mass to look like Dr. Eggman. Be a dead ringer for that. But yeah, like, I heard some clips, and he just didn't seem all that prepared for the event at large. And it's just, like, begging the question, like, dude, did you rehearse? Did you think of some jokes that you could, like, share amongst the room? Did you really think that you're just going to be able to schmooze on by and improv the whole thing? I guess he did. He figured, like, a bunch of people that showed up for, like, FreeFurAll as it is, empty as fuck, and not a whole lot of people. Anything he did or said could probably breathe life into this guy. So, yeah, I'd say D-. See me after class. We need to get back to, like, talking about your sense of humor, bro. But other than that, the things I've seen, like, there was the dance floor, okay? And typically, when you go to conventions, the dance floor is like a fucking rave. There's lights shining everywhere, loud thrombotic music pumping, like, the energy in the room just makes you want to get up and dance. You know, it's like fucking James Brown leading this counter, like, offensive. But not this convention. Like, the mental image I got from the clips that I saw was like watching Chris Chan trying to dance. There was a clip of him down in, like, Virginia, you know, like Ruckersville, Virginia, where he took a hiatus from the internet for, like, a couple of years. And during that time, he was such a recognizable figure that people in public could, like, spot him and immediately recognize him. And he, for whatever reason, went to, like, you know, an outdoors music event, you know, and they're playing, like, you know, rockabilly on, like, the stage, and you see Chris Chan, like, and he doesn't know how to fucking dance, okay? He's like a big orangutan, really long arms, and, like, a fat body, and he's just going like this, like, and you see people behind him just kind of pointing at him. It's like, honey, look at this. No, really, just look at this. Look at this, honey. Like, what the fuck is going on here? And it reminded me of that because, like, I barely saw any movement, and that's what people pride themselves in. People that go to raves and actually get, like, you know, seduced by the music, they actually, like, get up and dance. You see some fucking energy. You see, like, the energy, like, rippling through them, okay? I don't care how drunk or high you are. Like, when that music hits, you get up and fucking dance. Sure, there might be a crowd of people in the very back that are just watching the whole thing, but the people that are in it, you get up and fucking dance, okay? I don't care if, like, you tell me that you can't dance, you fucking dance, okay? And if you can't dance, I'm gonna give you, like, a couple shots of vodka, make you think you can dance. Then we'll see how successful you are. But no, it's just like, that was the most pitiful fucking dance floor I've ever seen, okay? Hands down. Like, I'm sure DashCon and Rainforest could have beat that. all right, in like, you know, in any way. And it was just crazy to me because like the music, well, the music was nothing right at home about. Like, to be honest with y'all, it was not good. It was the music itself was pretty piss poor. Okay, like I'm gonna be honest with you. Maybe like there was a couple of decent tracks in there, but you know, I will say this: that candy corn femboy, he was probably the best dancer there, but he wasn't dancing on like the dance floor when I looked. It was at the dance competition, which was a separate panel, so he gets half credit for that. But like the dance floor itself, whew, I don't know. It just. None of this was impressive. And I didn't even get to the worst fucking part of all this. Like, the worst fucking part was the ball pit. The ball pit was, like, you know, that, like, ball pit that I was sitting in at the very intro of this video? That looks like the fucking Ritz compared to the ball pit they had. And, like, if this was just to, like, poke fun at DashCon, I don't know, you kind of failed. Like, I would have at least had something twice as big, but, like, that fucking ball pit, that was, like, for little kids, like, 3-year-olds. And meanwhile, you had like adults like just like slumping down in it like this, which admittedly was kind of funny, but it just seems kind of sad. It seems like a reminder of the fact that your convention is depopulated as all fuck. And, you know, the snake, like, you know, from Safari's Sanctuary, they brought the snake out, and the snake was just chilling in that thing for a little bit. But then after that, like, various fursuiters were just like chilling out in that, and that became like the basis of a joke. As in, like, people were, like, you know, editing their own personas to be in there, either pissing into it, or maybe sitting into it, or, like, doing this, that, and the other. And you gotta wonder, somebody has got to have pissed in that thing, right? Like, they got to have. Somebody has had to. Alright, I don't know who, but somebody has had to. So, yeah, like, all that to say, this was a real snooze fest, and if this was, like, sort of a proof of concept that this could be successful, I can only imagine, like, how successful, because here's the thing, you know, conventions typically, the way they operate is you need a lot of money, or the expectation of money, or the venue itself has to be cheap, like dirt cheap, and I don't think that was necessarily the case. I don't even know what registration costs. Like $20, $25, $45. Were there any sponsorship, like, you know, tokens? Were there any, like, you know, mega sponsors? Even then, I don't think that would have supported the convention in all of its entirety for, like, all the spaces that we saw. And you can make the argument that like Glenpool, Oklahoma is probably cheaper than Tulsa, Oklahoma. But I would just come back and say, like, yo, then who's footing the bill? Like, how do they accrue all the money necessary to keep this up and running? Not to mention the fact that that charity, like, last I checked, had raised, like, something like $10,000. I think there was sort of like a back and forth. Like, during the actual convention, they were bragging about how they managed to raise $8,000 in charity money, which certainly piques my eyebrow, because if you only had, like, I'm going to be very generous and say that you had 100 people, maybe a little bit more than that. Let's push it to like 125. I ain't going as high as 200 because I don't think there was that many people that registered, but you know, maybe they did. Maybe there were various ghosts. And we're talking about like a reverse ghost. Usually when people ghost conventions, what they do is they will like sneak into the convention center without buying a badge, and when they get caught, they just are like, oh well, it was good while it lasted, bye, and then they're a ghost. Or like in this situation, like what I'm trying to refer to is a reverse ghost would be somebody that registered, paid the money, like non-refundable, and never attended for whatever reason, and you know, like that's how it ended. It's just like, okay, thanks for the money, thanks for supporting the convention. Maybe they were like appealed to the idea. They liked the idea that this was supposed to be a convention that was returning to the roots of the furry fandom, the base roots, and escape from reality, not having to worry about politics, responsibilities, or the judgment of your peers, your fellow furs, without, like, freedom of consequences. But, you know, at the same time, they're bragging about how they're uncancelable, and that, like, the rest of the furry fandom can go suck a fat one. And, you know, it seems eerily like crazy to me that various furries that were, I went back to try to take screen caps because I didn't catch them the first time around. I was still in like shell shock, okay? I just couldn't believe that FreeFurAll actually took place, you know, and I still want to believe that it didn't actually take place. This is just some wild, crazy hoax that was like, you know, built up around like, you know, a temporary rental of a convention space out in Glenpool. But, you know, we have visual evidence in a multitude of different forms and testimonials that it did happen, so I'm just going to have to accept the fact that it did actually happen. But, like, you gotta wonder, there's this weird contrast, and all of the people that attended, either if they were no-names, they didn't really have a large Twitter presence, but most of the people that were immediately recognizable had a big, like, Twitter presence, because everybody in the furry fandom fucking knew them. They knew exactly what they had said, and, like, usually, in most cases, these were repeat offenders. Like, Candy Lupine, his rap sheet would be this fucking big, and I'm only holding, like, my hands this wide, this tall, because I'd be holding it down to the floor if I could. He has a history of saying the worst, most reprehensible shit you could ever imagine. He was supposed to go, but like I said before, he kind of got arrested, so he's going to have a fun time explaining to the FBI and the Secret Service why he threatened the life of the vice president, but anyway, in the lead up to all of this, when it actually hit, like, you know, Twitter, like furry Twitter, people were absolutely lampooning the event, and even now, various people are lampooning everybody they attended, okay? Everybody. Like, labeling them as Nazis, fascists, like, alt-right furs, and alt-furs, and fucking, like, fascist furs, and Nazi furs. Anything under the sun. The same kind of rhetoric that you would have heard back in 2016. I digress. It did not look like everything about the convention just seems like it was destined to fail. Not fail as in like literally fail, because I guess technically it was a success. It happened, nothing bad happened other than like a fire on social media. But like at the end of the day, I don't think I would have had a good time at like FreeFurAll, okay? Unless I was like either high off of acid, weed, or like drunk off my ass on alcohol. Because at that point, like, it could be like this. It's just like, oh, your convention, like, experience sucks, bro? Here, let me help you with that. Here, take a couple hits of this shit, man. He'll all just go away. Just, nothing looked appealing. I think the most pathetic thing I saw was that off to the side in the hallway, there was like a light box. And if you don't know what a light box is, or one of those light machines, they basically radiate predetermined, like, pixelated, like, lights onto the walls and ceiling. They're popular at room parties, you know. I got one. But it was just off to the side, like, propped up on a trash can. And if that doesn't, like, sort of, like, say, everything surrounding all of this, 1, complete lack of attendees. 2, the attendees that actually showed up have horrible reputations and are known, like, throughout the entire furry fandom, to have said some morally reprehensible things. 3, the venues and activities didn't really seem all that fun to begin with. Like, you know, I like turtles as much as the next guy, but, like, going to an event to actually, like, paint one, unless I'm painting the Sistine Chapel on, like, Turtle Pope's back from Elden Ring, I don't think I'm all that interested, okay? And, just the whole thing. This is like the worst convention I have ever heard. Worse than DashCon. Like, at least DashCon had, like, you know, the passion behind the people that went to DashCon that got fucked over by the event organizers. Either due to their, like, own incompetence or as something they were actually willing to do. You know, you're free to disagree with me or maybe, like, pose a different idea. But there's nothing more I can really say about all this, other than the fact that, as far as furry conventions go, this was a hard pass for me. Like, not even on a dare. And, like, I was, like, when it was first announced, I was seriously tempted on going, just to see, like, what it would be like. But I kind of have thresholds. I don't mean to be, like, a convention snob, but I was used to, when I first started going to conventions, I was used to, like, 30,000 people attending, like Otakon. Furry conventions are more like 5,000 to 10,000 people. Like, that's a decent amount of people. But no, this just seems like a drop in the bucket, and I don't entirely know what they were trying to accomplish, because you're definitely not going to beat Den Fur, in spite of the fact that Den Fur, to this day, is riddled with controversy. Remember the whole Den Fur situation I covered months ago? It's still going on, and I've been meaning to cover it, but it seems like every other day, another dramatic event happens. But yeah, that's really all I can say about, fucking FreeFurAll. Apparently, FreeFurAll 2023 is going to be a thing. So if you're interested and you want to go see various people that are the least bit controversial, the least bit sus, hey, more power to you. You can register for 2023, you know? Maybe it's going to be a real event. Maybe they're going to actually be in Tulsa, Oklahoma instead of Glenpool. But remains to be seen. And, like, as far as Peace Wolf goes, again, like I said before, I got no personal beef with her, but a lot of people have made, like, claims that she is the least bit transphobic. So my question is she a TERF? Like, I'm genuinely just curious. Would she be considered like a TERF? Like a trans-exclusive, like, cis female? Or, like, you know, radical female? I forget what the actual acronym stands for, but, you know, a lot of my trans friends really do not like TERFs for good reason. So anyway, Polybun is out of the picture. Kenny Lupine's probably going to be out of the picture for a while, unless he can pony up $30,000 of cash. So that basically left the Furry Raiders and various other radicals, like free radicals throughout the furry fandom, to attend the event. And they seem to be partying, having a good time, eating free Chipotle. Nah, I'm kidding. They didn't eat free Chipotle. I'm actually curious if, like, any snacks or things were served, because if I went to an event like that and there wasn't any forms of entertainment, there wasn't, like, an open bar, I think due to their Puritan and Mormon beliefs, like, alcohol would be the least on the table. But, like, I would expect at least being served a drink, like a whiskey sour, or maybe even some, like, rot gut gin or something like that. Nah, this seemed like an absolute snooze fest. But hey, you know, at least nobody got mauled by, like, a liger or, like, killed by turtles or anything like that, and Super Mario didn't show up to smash one of them. So I guess I got that to look forward to. So I know I'm kind of late to the party in, like, commenting about, like, FreeFurAll, but it had to be said, okay? Obviously, my fixation was more on Hypnotist Sappho and the various controversies unfolding around that, but, like, it was worth just mentioning everything that I was sort of thinking on FreeFurAll, because, like, looking at everything, the more I saw just looked worse and worse. And what's crazy, absolutely crazy, like, somebody posted, like, a picture of, like, clown convention, you know? That's what it looked like to them, that this was a clown convention. All the people are just, the only word I can sort of summon from the bottom of my heart is that this was a cringe fest. Like, this was a cringe convention, okay? The cringe fringe decided to show up, okay? And they didn't show up in mass, but at the same time, if that's where they want to be, like, they want to have a convention themselves, it, like, did they do this out of necessity? I have to ask. Like, did each and every did you all, like, chase them out of conventions? Because I have seen people with some fairly, like, spicy views. As long as you're not, like, threatening violence or anything, conventions usually will not go out of the effort to, like, single you out and ban you, generally speaking. Diesel Raccoon is a little bit of a anomaly in that sense, because he said some pretty egregious things and was alluding to the fact that he was going to be like a polybun. But I wouldn't have that same sort of, like, concern about Diesel Raccoon, because he seems pretty harmless. Albeit, it's still straining my brain why so many conservative furries are secretly, like, you know, diaper furs. Why is it that they want to be baby furs? Like, they fantasize and fetishize being a baby themselves. Like, they want to return to their early childhood. And usually, this sort of continues from the time they're early 20s up until, like, their 40s, which is pretty fucking weird. But hey, if you're a diaper fur yourself, I'm not trying to judge you or nothing like that. It just seems like a weird trend that, like, 1 minute you're doing the, like, you know, Hi Hitler, and then the next minute you got a binky in your mouth and you're, like, acting like being a baby fur is completely okay, and you still want to espouse the image of being a badass, like Nazi, but you still also want your binky and your, like, fucking bib and shit like that. It just, I guess being walking contradictions is, like, a-okay for these people. you know, because I know damn well if, like, the Fourth Reich ever became a thing, furries would be definitely on the chopping block of, like, the various degenerates that would be killed, okay? Me being Asian and furry, well, that's like a double negative right there. So I'm definitely going to the gas chambers in that case, but hopefully that'll never happen. I say hopefully, but maybe, like, stick to your guns and just, you know, watch out for any radicals that might be espousing some particularly spicy views. I remember, like, getting reading material like that back when I was in college, and you always wonder who are the kinds of people that would just kind of slip that under your door and, like, try to get you to read that crap. But those days are long gone. I sort of continue with life, and life has been more or less peachy keen, except for Twitter being an absolute dumpster fire. But it's going to be that way for a long damn time now. If you had any thoughts, criticisms, or maybe even, like, you know, insight as to FreeFurAll, why don't you go ahead and leave a comment under the video here, you know, in the comments section, because I'm interested in hearing from you. What did you think of FreeFurAll? Did you see anything particularly egregious? Did you think that I was unfair in my assessment of the whole event from start to finish? Did I forget anything? Is there something that I should have mentioned? I'd like to hear from you. So, regardless of that, I think I'm just going to go ahead and stop the video right here, because if I think of anything else, I will try to include it. But I hope you all enjoyed the video. Till next time, guys, take care and peace. I hope you all have a better one.
I watch you laugh and see that amazing smile.
Hey fellas, thanks for watching the video today. I really hope you all enjoyed it. Would you care to hit that like button, subscribe for more? You know I really appreciate that, right? And hey, if you're in the mood for gaming, why don't you check me out on Twitch sometime? Link in the description below. Anyway, till next time guys, take care and peace. I hope you all have a better one.